This is the XS Manchester Football Social, the first one of the week, so get involved today. Vent a little steam from the weekend's footballing action. It's truly a Blue Monday today in Manchester. The weather has had that grey inevitability that only Manchester can do, and City, for the first time this season, have lost. So it's no surprise that many in Manchester might be feeling a little bit down. That's not what I meant to play, so I'll just crack on. City have lost to a cracking game versus Liverpool at Anfield yesterday, meaning the unbeatable dream is over. And City extend that 80-year run of failing to do the double over the Merseysiders. Plus, it looks like Alexis Sanchez, a deal proclaimed as almost done last Monday, could be crumbling around Pep Guardiola's ears. It looks like he might be heading to the other side of the city. If you want to get involved on today's topics, 0345 111 7625 is the number. 87711 is the text number. If you're a blue, then you can get in contact. If you're a red, you can get in contact and feeling quite smug about how the Sanchez deal might be panning out. So, to talk tonight to you on the blue side of Manchester, we have the voice of City, Ian Cheeseman. Evening, Ian.
Evening.
And on the red side of City, just coughing and choking in the background, we've got our very own breakfast show host from XS Manchester, Steve Berry. Evening.
The Paul Lambert of XS Football Social, a man only called upon when everyone good has knocked it back and you're absolutely desperate. I know my place.
I was going to say don't put yourself down there as the Paul Lambert of XS Manchester, but now you've kind of quantified that. That does make perfect sense. It's kind of like that Paul Lambert appointment at Stoke does feel like last chance saloon. 3 of their first choices for manager said no, so they turned to Paul Lambert. We'll be speaking to a Stoke fan ahead of tonight's game as United play Stoke at Old Trafford very, very soon. But let's talk about the weekend first, and what a game of football we saw at Anfield. 4-3. Not many people could have complaints about that game, apart from maybe Ian Cheeseman, because it means the end of the unbeatable dream, Ian.
I've got no complaints. I thought Liverpool were the better side. They deserved to win. They had a real go, and that's what we all want to see. We want to see football where both teams have a go, and that's exactly what Liverpool did. At 1-1, Liverpool played, I thought, excellently in the first half, fully deserved to take the lead. I thought City had a strong last 15 minutes of the first half and scored a goal and got themselves level. I thought they started the second half very well and actually looked the more likely to score in that opening 15 minutes of the second half. And then some defensive mishap at the back by City. And, you got to give credit to Liverpool. I'm not meaning to take it away from Liverpool, but weak defending by City and mistakes that were made defensively by the 2 central defenders and the goalkeeper. Suddenly the whole game turns around, the momentum swings, and all that sort of energy goes into Liverpool and drains out of City. So they lost the game. It's how they react to it now, and they've got Newcastle next up, then they've got the second leg of the Bristol City game and West Brom, and if they can come through those 3 games back to winning ways, then the Liverpool game will quickly be forgotten. But it's a little, I think, shot across the bows, a little warning that teams who really have a go at City and have the quality to match them could unsettle them. So, when it comes to the latter stages of the Champions League, if City get to the League Cup final and play Chelsea, for example, then those are the games where you sort of think, well, if they go toe-to-toe with City, are the Blues vulnerable? That's the question.
But attacking-wise, Liverpool are an exceptional team, aren't they?
They are, but you will come up against exceptional attacking teams in the Champions League. Paris Saint-Germain, Real Madrid. Obviously, they could play Liverpool again.
Yeah. Manchester United.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but
it was like what Klopp said about the game. It was an amazing game of football, and if you're a neutral, fantastically entertaining stuff. But Jurgen Klopp was saying it was almost like he was saying to the other managers, "This is what you need to do against City." And I was going to have a go at Ian for what he said, but he did qualify it by saying, "If you have the quality," and there's the caveat. It's all very well for Liverpool, as you said, Jim, with the quality of attacking players that they have to take the game to City, but how many teams in the Premiership have that quality? Very few. And to play the game that Jurgen Klopp played against Manchester City, for the majority of teams, both in the Premiership and in the Champions League, would just lead to an absolute hammering.
Completely, yeah. Just space all over the park and attack the way that Liverpool did. Although, Bristol City, we said after the League Cup game, they came at City to a certain extent, attacked them, and they did all right in that game, but that was against a City B team, which a lot of Premier League games won't obviously face against a City team that week.
City are vulnerable at the back. It's been disguised, if you like, by the fact that City's game is all about possession, dominating possession, not just statistics. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about controlling the game. I'm talking about playing in the other team's half, which means that generally you only have to pick off counter-attacks. And Stones that can work for John Stones, and that's why he's bought 2 fast fullbacks as well. I know one of them obviously has been injured. But against teams who can keep the ball themselves and press and put pressure on, that's when the defensive vulnerabilities of John Stones, who I've never particularly thought of as a really good defender. He's a good footballer, but I'm not sure he's a great defender. Otamendi, very good defender, not a great defender. And 2 attacking fullbacks. And obviously City started at Anfield with Fabian Delph, who's done very well, but in an emergency role at left back, he's not a left back. So I think City are vulnerable there.
How's the manager to know, though, Ian, if you are of the quality of Manchester City and the game that you play is the game that you've just explained, where it's a possession game, a pressing game, an attacking game, how is a manager to know how things are at the back if for the majority of games that Manchester City play in, they completely dominate possession, they completely dominate the game? I mean, if you're ever short of a keeper, I'm pretty handy between the sticks, and I reckon I could get away with it.
Look at the thighs on him if you're watching on the video.
How is Pep to know what his defence is like when they're so infrequently tested?
I guess that's it. It's the challenge, isn't it? And you said a lot about goalkeepers in very good sides, that it's all about concentration. And you might not be tested constantly for a game, but it's when those 1 or 2 or even 3 opportunities happen where the opposition get the ball or there's an attacking move. It's holding that concentration and be able to perform at that moment. And that is the test of a good defender for those type of teams. It might not be the same good defender who needs to be playing for a lower league side and throwing himself in front of balls to stop shots every 30 seconds.
Well, look at Barthez, the mad Frenchman at United. You know, he was a great player of the ball, a great sweeper keeper, but moments of madness. And the moments of madness came, if you looked at the games, it's because for a lot of the time he had absolutely nothing to do because Manchester United was such a dominant team when he was playing for them. So it's what is Guardiola to do with his defence if he's unsure of who his best players are, because they hardly ever see the ball?
Well, I think he believes in his defence, and in the latter stages of that game when City were 4-1 down, they carried on playing the way that they play, and that is his philosophy. He wants to build a team that can play football. That's why he's got John Stones in that defence, who can play football, who can bring the ball out when he's playing at his best, can be a distributor, and ideally, I guess he'd want another one like that with these 2 fast fullbacks, but that is vulnerable. No system is perfect. You know, we've talked a lot about, United being negative and parking the bus under Mourinho, and he's done that. He did that at Chelsea, and it worked, and they won trophies. But it's vulnerable in certain circumstances. Pep's philosophy is a different one, but that's vulnerable as well. There is no perfect system. No team is unbeatable, as we saw with City yesterday at Liverpool.
Very quickly before we move on, Ian, you said it's all about the reaction now. Is there any chance that this loss, having been on that long run this season so far, is there any chance that loss could upset the apple cart in a similar way to it did at the beginning of last season when they went on the unbeaten run and suddenly lost a game and it got wobbledy for a while?
I don't believe so, no.
Fair enough.
A short answer.
There it was, very short, right? Loads going on at the moment. We've got Manchester City recording their first loss of the season versus Liverpool at the weekend. We've got Giggs as Wales manager and Manchester United versus Stoke happening tonight. But the story that's really caught my eye over the last week or so is that of Alexis Sanchez. Now, it's hard to pick the fake news from the facts during the transfer window at the best of times, but I was told by several people with reliable sources at the beginning of the week that the Sanchez deal to City was done. And was not done, and might be done in the future. But now it's looking less and less likely that it's going to happen at all. Alexis Sanchez, if the reports today are being believed, will not be going to Manchester City at all. Instead, he'll be turning up at the other side of Manchester at Old Trafford. So how do we pick the bones out of this one? Ian, are you disappointed that Sanchez may not be coming to City?
Well, as you say, it's not over yet. I mean, a lot of people claim to know what's going on, and maybe they're right, because it is difficult to tell the wheat from the chaff, the fake news from the real news. It certainly seems that last August City were very close to doing a deal and it collapsed, and it also seems from what I've heard that Alexis Sanchez and Pep Guardiola are very close, and that he said City was the place to come. And he's a player I'd love to see playing for City. He's a quality player. I think he's exactly the type of player who would help the Blues go on in this latter stage of the season. So if he goes to United, to me that will be a big disappointment. Let me quantify this by saying that pretty much all top footballers are mercenaries. So I'm not making, so when I say that Alexis Sanchez is now proving what a mercenary is, I'm not pretending that other players who City, United and whoever have signed are not mercenaries as well. However, having sort of, it would appear, shaken hands on a deal and perhaps convinced City that he would wait until the summer if needs be to come on a free transfer and then do a U-turn, because a lot of money's been offered him, a big golden handshake to sign and record-breaking wages. It shows that he is sort of almost revealing that he is the ultimate mercenary, and I can't say I am sort of I am an admirer of City's stance on this, which is take it or leave it.
Isn't it surprising that City have taken a stance over money here? Because the rumours are, again, it's in the newspaper, it's what you think, may or may not be true, 350 grand a week is the wages he could be getting at Old Trafford. There's also a case of the £10 million that apparently is the stumbling block, the difference between Arsenal's valuation and City's valuation. It seems insane in this world of numbers with more zeros than you could possibly imagine on transfer fees and on wages, that a few quid here and there makes any difference to a player signing from a club point of view at all.
I had a very interesting debate yesterday on one of our sister stations, if you like, saying that in Germany, the clubs and the fans take a stance, and that's the reason why prices are lower and wages are lower for players, etc. And a supporter of a team in Germany was asked, "Do you approve of this? Because it means you don't necessarily get the best players." And a bit like the argument of is the result the only thing that matters, or is it the football? The answer was, as far as I'm concerned, the fact that we all know a club and there's more of a moral connection to the club is more important to me than necessarily having the most expensive players. Now, I'm not pretending City are not spending a lot of money, of course I'm not. But if City had spent 35, 40 million pounds in this window for 4 months when his contract runs out in the summer, people would be saying City are ruining football. What a ridiculous thing to do.
Well, they're already saying that, aren't they?
But they're not doing it. That's the whole point. They've said 20 million,
because they don't need
it.
to. It's funny that Ian's not doing it. I wish he had, because then I could have a go at him. But it's a bit rich of us, if you'll pardon the pun, to sit here and talk about this when the only team with old-fashioned honourable intentions here are Arsenal. Arsenal want to offload this player so they can buy another player. They can't just go to their sugar daddy and go, "Oh, can we have unimaginable riches to buy this?" What's he called? Have a go at this one. Aubameyang from Borussia Dortmund. What do they need? Aubameyang. They want 60 million for him. So Arsenal's got to find that money somewhere, so he's got to offload players. He isn't in the fortunate situation of City and United, where they can just go to the bank of mum and dad or whatever and get it, without interest, and just, how much money do you want? There you go, pal, thanks, great.
And Wenger has always been a financially responsible manager.
And yeah, he gets vilified by the Arsenal fans. So here's a manager who does stand by his principles and isn't spending money willy-nilly. And because they don't win the league every year with the most expensive players in the world, half of the Arsenal fans want rid of him. And
Piers Morgan's tweeting, "We'll swap him for Mourinho." Yeah. We'll swap Sanchez for Mourinho. Why? Because Arsene Wenger is a man of principle. He operates an old-fashioned, you get so much in, you get so much out, and he tries to buy sensibly and sell when the players
running
at the best
a football
price.
Club like a business that needs to make a profit. What insanity is this?
Do you know who doesn't normally win in Formula 1 these days? Ferrari. I've met a lot of Formula 1 drivers from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s and now. Every single last one of them wants to drive for Ferrari, my friend. Just like every young lad growing up playing football wants to play for Manchester United.
Do you think the legend of the club still has that kind of value in attracting players? It has a value, but does it have the same kind of value as the immediate prospect of winning trophies?
I know. I'm saying to you, I'm telling you, I know drivers who've turned down millions and millions of pounds to go and drive for Ferrari, because every boy who wants to race cars grows up with dreams of racing for Ferrari. They've not won out for ages, and they probably won't this. Well, they might not for years, but the legend, my friend, still burns, and the legend of Manchester United burns bright around the world. See if there's a Man City supporters club in Santiago, Chile. I bet there's a United
We'll have a look.
club.
We'll get
I love the arrogance of United fans who think that the world revolves around them. That's what makes City fans different.
Let's finish off on some transfer rumours, because of course it is silly season. I want to know your thoughts on these, whether you think they're hits or misses. First one, Arsenal are keen to sign Manchester United's Armenian midfielder Henrik Mkhitaryan as part of the deal for Sanchez. That's being reported by The Guardian. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I asked my lad about this, who's a student of these things, and I said, one word, why is David De Gea being offered a contract to extend to the end of his career? And he said, consistency. And why is Mkhitaryan off? Inconsistency. And I think I can't say more than that.
I mean, Mkhitaryan is a decent player. We know that from his time in the Bundesliga, Ian, which you are a big watcher of. So he can't have suddenly become a bad player overnight at Old Trafford. Could he flourish at Arsenal?
He didn't fit the United format, I think, and obviously coming in and out a little bit as he did didn't help him. I wonder whether Mkhitaryan, if he does go to Arsenal, is part of the trying to sweeten the Aubameyang move, because obviously the two of them played together at Dortmund. But Mkhitaryan hasn't fitted with Jose Mourinho, so it makes sense for United to move him on. And in a sense, you could argue, and this is a bit of a cop-out for me anyway, but we don't care about whether he fits in at Arsenal, do we?
No.
Right, we would check, but that's all we've got time for on tonight's XS Manchester Football Social. Steve Berry, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ian Cheeseman, thank you very much.
See you tomorrow.